baseball lifestyle. It's my lifestyle.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Grounds Crew. Before we get started, as always, make sure you like and subscribe. Toss us a review. We appreciate your support. We were just talking about the fact that we are always right on this podcast, or
Always.
at least early to the answer. The Red Sox beat the Rays.
Called it.
You're not shocked.
Not shocked at all. Again, what we said on last episode came to fruition. The teams who play in the play-in game, right, get a little bit of extra energy, but the bigger person who had energy, the bigger situation was you had the Red Sox beat the Yankees, which is the premier rivalry in baseball, right? So you have the premier rivalry in baseball be a one-game playoff that they win. They're now playing a team they've played like a dozen plus times, like 20 times in a regular season, and you know each other. You come through, you take down the Rays. We've talked about it. How are the Rays even here? How do they always put this team together? They seem to have the same thing that the Yankees have in my eyes to some degree. The Rays are in a situation where they develop great talent. They're built on analytics, but they just don't like Randy's ready for the playoffs every time.
All the time.
He's always ready, right? He's Randy to be Randy.
So where do you think they came up short this year? I mean, just obviously off the top, they didn't have Glass now, which hurts.
Yep.
But also, from what I understand, like they're also going to ditch a bunch of their like core guys this year and get their reload started again.
Yep.
So I feel like that's probably like they just had a little bit of an underperformance, and Glass not being there hurt. Like,
yeah, again, it is what it is, right?
Yeah.
Like baseball is funny. So again, I was watching this morning. Fast forward to not too long ago, and Daniel Murphy turned into Babe Ruth and just started cracking home runs.
Yeah, I watched that video.
And he hits one off of Kershaw, and the Mets in 2015 get to a World Series, and they weren't necessarily even close to being that team. They stopped the Dodgers like dynasty from really kicking off and getting started then, right? They delayed it another year, and Daniel Murphy was always a really good player. He was an ascending player. He then, after that, was a really, really good player. Signed for big money. Was a really good player. Hit like 25. Can we pull up post-Mets Daniel Murphy for me, Dietz?
I think he batted like 320 with the Nationals.
Yeah, he was a legitimate stud for like a 2-year at least window, but I'm pretty sure for 3 years of that contract, he was a really high-level player. Do we got him pulled up?
Yeah, so first season with the Nationals, 25 home runs, 104 RBIs. He had a 347 batting average. His OPS was 985.
That's ridiculous.
Okay, so 985
he didn't win MVP. Right?
985 OPS year one. Okay, next year.
Next year, 23 home runs, 93 RBIs, 322 batting average, 928 OPS.
928, also
Stupid.
an all-star. Let's give
Absolutely
me the third year.
Third year, he looks like he got traded mid-season, so I'll just go with the total for the season. He had 12 home runs, 42 RBIs, 299 batting average, 790 OPS.
That was his last year?
That was his last year was...
What was the year? What was the year after that? Don't go to last year. What was the year after that?
Year after that, 2019 with Colorado, 13 home runs, 78 RBIs, 279 batting average, 780 OPS.
So he had his 2 years, right? His 2-year window after that, he was a dog. Again, he's a guy who we talk about. He came up late with the Mets. That season, how old was he age 2019 season?
2019, he was 34.
So, that's a dude who really didn't get his pop until he was late in his career.
Yeah.
So this huge burst happened post age 30, and his fall off happened, and he needed to have been in the league sooner, so that he would have gotten through his growing pains and learned how to play at the MLB level, and you would have gotten more years of a guy who had the potential of being 1,000 OPS dude. So that's besides the point. But Daniel Murphy led them and just was so hot himself on a team that had all the other pieces. They had great pitching. They had all the stuff. That they just get hot. The Red Sox are well built. They can't hang their hat on one thing. But we saw it during a part of the season when Schwarber got hot. He carried them to a whole bunch of victories.
Yep.
Dude, anybody gets hot in a series with who has power in their body, you could turn a whole series around. I think that's all that happened. They ran into a little bit of a buzzsaw in a short series. I think that's all it was. That's a 7-game series. I don't know if we have the same result.
Yeah, it might be different. I think the Red Sox pitched good enough, but their hitting has postseason experience, and they did the job. Series that was big letdown for me. I was just so disappointed in Astros Sox. I wanted so much more from that, and the Astros exposed 2 things. One, that they are a good baseball team. They don't need to cheat to be successful.
Yes, sir.
And postseason experience absolutely plays. 2, that the White Sox are young and just didn't have it this time. I think next year they will absolutely, if they're in the playoffs, it'll be different.
So I think the Astros have a problem where they might be losing pieces of this pie.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So, like,
very real possibility.
This is the last, like, I feel like this might be the last rodeo for them to some degree.
Could be.
Unless they bring back Correa. Who I think he might be walking away, right?
I mean, the contract they already offered him, he laughed at it, and it was for like $160 million, so
he's probably going somewhere, right?
Could be, yeah.
So then that moves into us into that kind of framework where their young, exciting, talented team is now seasoned, older, ready to go, right? We talked about it in the last episode, right? Astros are that sneaky team because they have the experience. They've been there before. The White Sox were primed to be good in a playoff situation if you could get to the bullpen. Problem was you couldn't get to the bullpen with enough of a lead to really dominate, win the series. That's out. The Braves, we talked about it, Freddie Freeman. Freddie Freeman just put them on his back, carries them to the promised land. Goodbye, good night, short series.
Yep.
Short series are just so funky in baseball, right? Like, because you're just not used to 3 games could make it all. And any team could get hot for a 3-game run and just bounce a team that they have no business beating.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden you're in the next round and how did you guys then get 3-0'd, 4-0'd, and you're gone, right? Like, that's so disappointing. Guess what? That's the playoffs. Show up.
If you're the Braves, who, like, obviously by the time this podcast comes out, it'll be either the Giants or the Dodgers. You want to play the Giants?
I don't care. I don't think it's good to play either of them.
Yeah, probably not.
They're both better than me.
Yeah.
I got Freddie Freeman and a couple other really nice players, but I got Freddie Freeman and some nice.
Yeah.
Honestly, they comp out looking like the Giants. But the Giants have that, like, team of destiny shine right now. Like, they're really trying to hold on to the Infinity Stones as best they can.
Yeah.
I don't know who you would want to play. I don't think that there's a good win.
Yeah,
I don't think there's anybody you want to play.
There's no good answer, yeah.
Right? In that situation, like, there's nobody I want to play.
Yeah.
So, like, no one. The only thing I'll say to you is, like, White Sox, I think, are gonna regret not making more out of the season.
Oh yeah.
Because I look at next year, they look like they had a lot of nice stuff and a lot of good things. The team in the American League that I still stand by is going to be the cream of the crop of everything next year. Is Toronto.
Oh yeah.
Like, Toronto's so nasty good, and if they're willing to spend more money, like if they're willing to go all the way to the top. And the Rays are reloading and resetting the bar down. And
the Yankees might also be kind of
forget
in
the
limbo.
Yankees are always going to try to win. The Boston Red Sox are going to continue to try to win. Like, but how do any of them really compete with the current iteration of where this team is ascending to?
Yeah,
like they're going to be better than they finished the season, I'd assume, because the guys who are young are going to continue to get better in their off seasons. There's going to be some normal progression forward, and then they might go out and sign a pitcher. Like, this again goes back, the Mets team of 2015. If I had told you that they were only going to make it to one World Series and really one playoff, that they even had threatened to be a team, you'd laugh at me, right? That team looked like a buzzsaw.
Yeah.
Your pitching staff was absolutely, well, we got Syndergaard, DeGrom, and Matt Harvey. And Matt Harvey was the Dark Knight returned, like, throwing shed, absolute net. Like, DeGrom was not the best pitcher on the Mets, and he was great.
Yeah.
Like 1.7 ERA or whatever it is. Harvey had a killer ERA before he got crushed.
You know what's crazy too with that pitching staff? They only pitched through the Big Five one time. Like, that's insane.
You didn't need to. Like, all those guys stepped up and pitched multiple times. You moved all your...
I mean in season.
Really? Did they?
Only one time. Harvey, DeGrom, Syndergaard, Wheeler, Matz. Once. And then
Think about that rotation right now.
Absolutely ridiculous.
Like that Wheeler, how good Wheeler is right now, and what Wheeler is displaying himself to be,
Yep.
on top of prime Syndergaard and prime DeGrom, with what was Matt Harvey. So I know you got Matt Harvey's numbers pulled up over there, Deets.
I actually have the 2015 pitching staff, and it doesn't even look like Wheeler pitched at all. But Harvey in 2015, Matt Harvey, 13-8 record, 2.71 ERA. He had 188 strikeouts and 189 innings pitched. However, Jacob DeGrom, 14-8 record, 2.54 ERA, 205 strikeouts and 191. So DeGrom was still better than the Dark Knight Matt Harvey.
But that was the Dark Knight coming back from the injury.
Yeah.
Right.
That's my point. Like that was the return of the Dark Knight.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was him worse. Show me the season before he got hurt.
So that would be 2013.
I'd assume.
2.27 ERA, 191 strikeouts and 178 innings pitched.
Like he was a stud.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the sad of everything is Harvey fell off, right? If Harvey does not fall off, you've got Harvey, DeGrom, Wheeler, and Syndergaard. That team should have won titles. The New York Mets should have been title town.
Yep.
But they don't re-sign. They don't re-sign Daniel Murphy in the offseason. And he goes on to be a 900 OPS guy.
Absolutely hated that move.
Right? You don't sign him. And instead you bring in a guy who had been okay, who was a comp for him on a one-year deal. And it just doesn't play out the way you expect it to. And the team is just not what it was. So, like, for me, I don't even know if the White Sox make it back next year.
Definitely. I mean, I hope they do.
You hope they do, but you got to strike while the iron's hot, man.
They also said they were gonna trade Kimbrel in the offseason.
Sure, because you don't need the two guys to be there, right?
Yeah. So hopefully whatever they acquire in that moves the needle.
But it's going to subtract from one place to upgrade in another
Right.
place, and you're messing with team chemistry, and you're doing all this stuff. Like, it's not always a one-to-one deal, right? It doesn't always help.
Yep.
Look at all the changeover that San Diego Padres had in the offseason, and it made them worse.
Yep.
For as much more as they did, they got worse. Right? You went out and you got Frazier from Pittsburgh, right? Worse. Things did not improve, right?
Yeah.
Cronenworth fell off a cliff in the second half. Like, solid player, right? The thing is that you do all this stuff and teams need time to gel. They need time to kind of fit each other. That's why, honestly, I look at some of the pieces on the Mets, and the Mets at least liked each other, right? So there's a good core of what that is. But, like, at this point in time, none of them have proven that they're winners.
Yeah.
And, like, I can have a whole bunch of dudes who have good culture, but if we don't win with good culture, I can take bad culture and rebuild it.
Yeah.
Right? I can make my culture meh and rebuild it on my staff. Because you know what solves culture? Winning. Look at the Sox. They were a joke for a long time. One good year, right? Culture's great. Mm-hmm. Build off of it, but I don't know if they're necessarily the team next year because everybody else is going to get better too.
Yep.
You got to capitalize.
You know, I think they're all kind of anticipating some major changes in that locker room, so the culture shift's going to happen in one way or another. So yeah, Giants-Dodgers. The series has played out exactly how I thought it would, in just that they've been hilariously even on pretty much every. The games have been great. It's 2-2 series right now. If you had, so let's go theoretical here. Let's say, for fun, the Giants win. So then our championship series is Giants versus Braves, and then Sox-Houston. Who's in the World Series?
Houston versus San Francisco.
Okay. And then even vice versa if the Dodgers
And then
are in
Houston
there.
wins the title.
People will hate that.
You can hate it all you want. You can hate it all you want.
Either way,
Their big three is still dope.
Oh yeah.
Like, Bregman's still a good player.
Oh, great player.
Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. And listen, I can see the Braves pulling off the upset over the Giants. I think that I'm super surprised, and this is gonna come off odd.
Okay.
At what point in time do good players not matter because the math matters?
I think that's more of a regular season question.
So, but that's my thing, right? Like, the Dodgers have like batting average, power guys like littered across their lineup, right? Their lineup is deep as heck with really, really good players.
Mm-hmm.
But at some point in time, the difference between having a guy who is batting .310 and is an all-star versus a guy who's batting .280 and isn't, when you're 8 guys, 9 guys deep, like as soon as you have more than 3 of these guys on a team, does it even make sense? Because I'm looking at these Dodgers and, like, based off of what you've consolidated into a group, my performance should be way higher than what I'm getting.
I mean, isn't that a testament to how good the Giants are?
No.
So what is it then?
It's the math not mattering. Like, in a regular season, a guy who bats .310 across 600 at bats, I find that the math matters, right?
Yeah.
I find that the actual math ends up being, what amounts to 5 points, right? Like, it's not an actual big number, right? So when you start saying like a 5% difference between one guy and another, that matters across 600 at bats, right? Because it's 30 more hits. And that mattered across 600 at bats. But when we're now into a situation where you're getting, in the whole postseason, under 100 at bats, the difference between 280 and 310 isn't mattering.
Mm-hmm.
It's coming up with, when does that hit happen? When's the math happen? And, like, I'm just watching it, and you would say, like, and a math person would say, well, a guy who bats .310 and a guy who bats .280, ultimately, over the law of averages, that guy who bats .310 should get a few more hits and then thus look more clutch. It's not true, right? Because we know in order to become statistically significant, they typically say in that math, you're looking at 1,800 is like you know it. That's why I say you need 3 years of a guy being in the MLB before you really know what he is. You need 3 years for a guy in the NBA. 4th year, he can maybe start breaking out. NFL players, 3 years of time, then you start seeing DNs and all these guys start to break out, quote unquote, quarterbacks break out, because you now have enough attempts that you have learned from it, right? That the amount of exposures have given me learning, but also I can start to say I know closer to who you are. Mm-hmm. But in 100 exposures, anything can happen because it's to some degree random.
Yeah.
I can have a guy bat .500 in the playoffs. I could. Mm-hmm. If he only gets 50 at bats. Gets 25 hits. He's hot, but it's only 25 hits. So, like, I'm watching this Dodgers team, and I'm recognizing also, like, it's the same Yankees math, right? It's the same thing. You're spending a lot of money and you did a lot of stuff to get these guys, and it gave you a good record, but now it doesn't effing matter. And like, that's so foreign to me, because if I told you that I collected 5 NBA guys, right? Mm-hmm. Like, if I had 5 guys who were the equivalent, like if I had the Golden State Warriors when the Golden State Warriors were the Golden State Warriors, there was no beating them. Mm-hmm. The only thing that needed, they were going to get hurt, right? Yep. That was it. That was how you beat them. Somebody got hurt, somebody got ejected, something else happened. But if all of them were on the court, you lost. The game was over before it started. Baseball, we get to the playoffs, it does not matter. None of it, it's a joke.
Yep.
And, like, that's where, again, I go and I said, like, the White Sox fucked up. You got to win.
Yeah. That was more what the question was like, are they going to bear down and perform? That's where it really mattered. And they didn't. And that's the crazy thing is, like, you have a bunch of baseball players who tell you, it's just one game out of 162, it's this. And then you practice all year not caring about one game. Mm-hmm. And then you get to this moment where
got to care about every game.
Yep.
And just it doesn't seem like baseball guys have the ability to all of a sudden clutch up at scale. And like say that my whole team is way more talented than you, so we're going to out-talent you on the field every moment.
Mm-hmm.
It's not happening. If it was, if I lined up talent
I think
for
you
talent.
see spurts of it.
But that's my point, right? I should expect the Dodgers team, position by position, at-bat by at-bat, to have an advantage in almost every single person in the batting order.
For sure.
Thus, if my pitching is better and my players are deemed better at every position, I should beat you easily. That's not the case in baseball. Because guys just can't turn it up and be great, right? And give more effort for 5 at-bats and then have it achieve 3 hits that are meaningful. In the NBA, a guy can clutch up and he can go and drive to the basket and make a hard layup. He
That's
can
just
pull
the nature
back
of
and
the game.
100%. I'm more saying is I think that like the like baseball needs to get a reversion, or you need to find the clutch guys. We talk about this with the difference between Mookie Betts and a guy like Trout. Like Betts has proven that he'll show up and win. Trout will put up numbers that don't lead to winning.
Yep.
This is a situation where I'm looking at these Dodgers, and if you lose this game, I got to break the whole thing up. What's the point?
Yeah.
What's the point?
And then it's just even more testament to how the Giants have constantly
Put their team
won.
together.
Yep.
They
It's
literally
just like
said
you're saying. They just have guys who are performing when it matters.
Chris
Cool, they're-
Bryant has done it. I know Chris Bryant will come up with clutch plays. He'll come up with we talk about with Javi Baez, right? Javi comes up with clutch plays. He's got a spark in him for clutchness, right? Lindor at the end of the year, big at bats, started to make these moments. I started to see more of it. Conforto never has been a clutch player in one time. I've never known him to be a clutch hitter. Never. Well, we need a big hit from... No, never have I said, Conforto came up huge in that game. Mm-hmm. Has he won games before? Sure, but they were games that, there was no pressure on. I don't remember anybody coming up. Chris Bryant, I feel like my man shows up and hits. Mm-hmm. Buster Posey, done it.
On the Dodgers, who I just, constantly feel like is that guy, Chris Taylor. He'll just come up. He batted, 240 on the season, but when they needed a walk-off, there he was.
Villar, we were just talking about it earlier.
Yep.
Villar on the Alars on the Mets, period. We were winning more games when those guys were playing all the time. Mm-hmm. But they're batting 250. But then you have guys who come in who bat 275. Well, the math is playing out that these guys are better. But why are these guys not winning as many games? Oh, well, it's the luck of... No, I disagree. Yes, across 600 at-bats, this guy will hit the ball more times. But this guy, when I need him to do it, knows how to square up a ball. He can clutch up.
Is there a measurable for that?
For clutchness?
Yeah.
Batting average with runners in scoring position.
Okay.
That's a genuine thing. You only have so many times that a guy comes up in scoring position. So a guy at second base, what do? Can we pull up Villar batting average with runners in scoring position for the year? And then you got to compare it against just his normal batting average, right? And if across the season he's 244 and with runners in scoring position he's 285, the dude's clutch. He becomes, because if he was a 285 hitter year round, he'd be a full-time starter, right?
Yeah.
If he was a 285 hitter in the meaningless moments, he always plays.
Yep.
But if they show up and they're clutch in the moment, right, they're at least... if they're better and they're raising themselves up, dude, you're clutch.
Did you have it yet?
Nope, still looking.
Okay.
Give yourself time. Go for it.
Talking about, is it measurable? Is there, a physical trait where that, certain guys can tap into this extra level? That's not a thing?
I can't think that there's so, in basketball, right? A physical trait that a guy can do when he needs to score is if he can just bully his way to the basket and make it impossible. So Shaq was clutch Because if he got the ball in a tight game, the other guy just couldn't stop him because he was physically dominant.
Right.
Right? So, like, he had an ability to physically clutch. But you look at, like, Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant was a worse shooter in clutch moments than he was the rest of the games. Now, you can say, oh, well, he had more coverage on him. It was this, whatever. But he was around the same shooter. But when you look at a guy like Carmelo Anthony shot like 17% higher than Kobe Bryant on shots to take the lead in under 2 minutes, right? Mm-hmm. And if Kobe Bryant versus Carmelo, when we look at those numbers, you say, yeah, but nobody would tell you that Kobe was less clutch than Carmelo Anthony. Mm-hmm. Well, why? Because Kobe's teams always won. Right?
Yeah.
Is Derek Jeter more clutch than Alex Rodriguez? People were saying, yeah, for a long time. But then we're on the same team and we're finally here. We're in the moment. It's time to go. Jeter was less clutch, directly proportional in a World Series moment, getting the team, than Alex Rodriguez. So who's more clutch? Oh, well, it's still Jeter, because think of all the big hits he had across his whole career. Well, who was on a more? Whose team won more? And in baseball, one guy does not dictate winning percentage.
Yeah.
They don't. They have no bearing. And the way I know that is Mike Trout has not dragged his team to the playoffs. Mm-hmm. And if you could do it with one guy in baseball, you could have one dude drag the whole team.
Well, I guess that also is like he just could. Sometimes he just not at bat in the clutch moment.
Correct.
So
right.
Like there's it. And like football. If it's clutch moment, you can throw it to that guy and
Josh
tell him
Allen,
to make a play.
Right?
Yeah.
The game is starting to get a little tight the other night. Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills versus Kansas City Chiefs. Game's getting tight. They need a long drive to just suck time off the clock. Right? 3rd and 4. 3rd and 4. Nobody's open. Josh Allen needs to run. Guy is collapsing down, going to hit him 2 yards short. Guy goes low to hit Josh Allen. Josh Allen jumps over an NFL starting player, leaps over him with his 6'5", 250-pound body, just skies. Gets over, gets the first down, drive continues. Clutch, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you go back last year on the Thanksgiving game against the Dallas Cowboys. Maybe it wasn't last year, it was 2 years ago. 4th and 1, they snapped the ball to try to get Josh Allen to do a QB sneak. Bad snap, ball's on the ground. Josh Allen grabs the ball, picks it up, tries to dive over the line, gets hit by a guy, shrugs him off, spins, lunges a second time, gets the first down. Guy grabs him, he takes the ball, flips the dude backwards to make sure he gets the yards. Clutch, man. Mm-hmm. That's not the play you teach. Had the moment, do it. How do you clutch? Some guys are clutch, some guys aren't in that situation.
It really, for me, it feels like it's just, can you tap into an extra level of focus when it matters? And so, like, some people can over a long period of time. Like you said, Kobe sometimes wasn't clutch in the clutch moment, but over a lifetime, over a full season, he was. And then you get guys like a Chris Taylor, who's batting .240, but when it's time for him to make a big play, somehow he's there all the time. Like in World Series, he's made diving plays to win games, walk-off home runs. Like, he's not a great player. He was an all-star this year, but it seems like there are guys who can tap into that extra level when it matters, like, all the time. And I feel like that's something over a regular season where it's hard to measure. But, like, for example, for the Mets, because we always go back to them.
Always.
Brandon Drury, for some reason, came up in a pinch hit situation to win a game and would just keep doing it. And it's like, well, why isn't he starting then? Oh, well, there's other guys doing this. Like you're saying, this guy's batting higher than him, whatever the case is. But he's clutch. So why wouldn't you want the guy who can lock in when it matters to go win the game for you? And I feel like that's just something that's challenging to measure, but it definitely exists and is more of like the eye test aspect of baseball.
So last year there was a little article that was done about batters who excel with runners in scoring position, and they pulled up how many RBIs were created by that player with a minimum of 120 at bats.
Okay.
What was your average RBIs in that situation? The number one player at that time who had at least 120 at-bats was DJ LeMahieu, right? And that makes sense. If you were a Yankee fan or you followed the Yankees, DJ was a killer for like a 2-3 year run, right? He was getting .51 RBIs with a runner in scoring position per at-bat, right? Wow. So you get 120 at-bats, you got an RBI in 60 of them. 60. So 50% of the time you were driving in an RBI.
Yeah, that's
clutch,
huge. Yeah.
Right? You then go down the line and you start seeing a trend on some things. Number 2, Eric Hosmer. Right? We don't think about Hosmer as like a great first baseman. Right? We don't think about, oh my God, like that's the first baseman you would choose. But runner in scoring position, .5. Again, he came up 128 times. He got 74 RBIs. Like,
That's goated.
Dude, Roughneck Odor, Bryce Harper, Javi Baez, Freddie Freeman, Anthony Rizzo, Rafael Devers, Albert Pujols, Anthony Rendon. Right? I'll stop there.
There's no.
Because that was 9. No, I'll give you one more.
Okay.
I'll give you one more. Jose Abreu.
Okay.
And Abreu was tied with Seager and Eddie Rosario. So when I look at all of those names, some of them come to light that we know that guy is that guy, right? I tell you, right, Bryce Harper came up in a big moment. That's why Bryce Harper's Bryce Harper. Maybe that's that difference.
See, that list right there for me is like, okay, all of those guys, if you told me I could pick any of them to win a clutch at bat, no, I have no problem picking any of those top 10 people. But, like, you can get a guy who bats 340 on the year and then is, like, a nobody. And I guess that's why a lot of people are trending away from using batting average as, like, a big-time statistic. They're more about OPS and other, metrics. But, for sure, that is, like, a huge thing. Are you clutch with the runners in scoring position where you can have more, statistically speaking, more of an opportunity to score runs?
1,000%. I think that this goes back to like what we're saying with like, do we think Rhys Hoskins is a good player?
Yeah.
Right? Rhys Hoskins in 151 at bats got 47 RBIs with a runner in scoring position. .24. Right? .24 RBIs, right, per plate appearance.
Yeah.
So he is 50% worse than DJ LeMahieu and Bryce Harper in a big moment. Right? So Bryce Harper for the Phillies is twice as good in a clutch situation as Rhys Hoskins. Well, what's Rhys's numbers overall this year, right? And what's Rhys Hoskins' numbers when he's a good player versus what's a guy like Harper run? So Hoskins this year had a down year because he didn't play as much, but he had 27 home runs, batted .247. His overall OPS was .864. So again, he's still an .864 guy. So he's about 100 points off OPS from Bryce Harper, which is not that big. But he's Bryce Harper is twice as likely to get an RBI if a man's on second or third. That's the thing. There's the thing, right? When you show up and you have the opportunity to do it, do you do it? Because I might look at the entire Dodgers team, and I might have guys who do nothing with a runner in scoring position. I might be looking at the Giants that we get a guy on second, 50% shot. Our top 5 guys are bringing him home.
I would love to see what the Mets' batting average was with runners in scoring position this year. It has to be abysmal.
One of the worst in the history.
Has to be abysmal.
Had to be.
Had to be like sub 200 minimum.
It was, well, again, you had guys on the team who were starting full time whose batting averages period were around 200. Michael Conforto was an atrocity of a player this year, right? If he didn't have his historical reference, he's not playing anymore. It would have benched his ass a long time ago.
Yeah.
If he was a young player, quote unquote, right? Because I'm pretty sure he's only 28 years old. If he was a young player, Michael Conforto would have been benched.
He would have been one of the guys that we cycled through this
Khalil
year.
Lee. Him and Khalil Lee are not much different this year in the major league level, right? You would have gotten rid of him. Him and Jared Kelenic had the same batting average in the second half.
Yep.
That's all you need to know, right? That's all you need to know. And I think that's the point is when we're looking at all of this stuff, I think baseball is so much. You gotta look at the pressure packed moments. You get a team that's good enough, at that point, I need guys who are just dogs.
Yep.
And that goes back to like me saying, like, what do you really need in the lineup? You probably need 3 studs, right? You then need 4 guys who are above average everyday players, right? I'm not saying that you need to have but we're talking like the J.D. Davises, right? J.D. Davis could probably start for 25 of the teams in the MLB with his 860 plus OPS at third base. He could get at bats with every single team in the league. That dude is on the Mets. Good. That's enough. He is good enough. But I need my 3 dogs to show up. And then I need to have my back 2 guys be guys that I take risks on. I don't know what they are.
The boomer bust guys.
The boomer bust guys. And I feel like too many teams are like, yeah, we got a pile of guys who have good statistics, good analytics. But dude, you're missing one big KPI. It's like, is this dude clutch? Villar, clutch. Pilar, clutch.
I would love
Conforto,
to see...
Pilar had some clutch.
VR had 140 batting average with runners in scoring position.
Beautiful. So I'm tainted by how bad the Mets were.
Yep.
Right? I'm tainted, but he had big hits. I feel like he always had these big hits. Nope. Guess what? I've been lied to. That explains why the team sucks. Because Villar was up with big key moments all year long. Because how many at-bats did the homie get? Do you have that pulled up?
At-bats with runners in scoring position?
Just at-bats, period.
I can
if
pull
you
it
have
up right now.
at-bats with runners in scoring position,
It was 120.
So a dude who batted 100.
You had 147?
Yeah.
He batted 150 in 100-plus at-bats with runners in scoring position.
That's brutal.
That's why you lose.
That is brutal.
But the fact that guy got 120 at-bats with runners in scoring position, he had to at least have had 400 at-bats this year.
Just so you have it as well, Mets with runners in scoring position had a 238 batting average this season.
That's the answer.
Brutal.
There's no clutch gene on that team.
Mm-hmm. Is there, in that stat, is there a runners left on base?
I can find it. I don't have it up at the moment.
Okay.
It doesn't matter, right? The big thing is, I just looked up Khalil Lee. He was worse than that, but he got 18 at bats. In 18 at bats, he only got 1 hit.
Mm-hmm.
But his 60 batting average, his .060 batting average, not that much worse than what Villar's just was in clutch situations. And my man got 400 something at bats this year, and did not come up clutch when it really mattered. We thought he did. Because of a window, an 18-game window where they were carrying our team with everybody hurt and injured. Team sucked when it mattered. And I think that's what I'm really getting to right now is there's not enough clutch on some of these teams, and you're seeing the Astros. Well, why did the Astros win? Clutch.
If you wanted to build a stat, with a couple different elements to determine a clutch gene.
Yeah.
What would you pull in?
I would go RBI with runner in scoring position. I would go batting average in a 1-run game after the 7th inning.
Yep, that's exactly where I was thinking. Yep.
And then I would go OPS in a game after the 7th inning. Because I still think how you succeed matters. Getting a weak single and having a 650 OPS when your regular OPS is 850, yeah, you can get a little hit and you can knock it along. But when I build my lineup around you being an 850 OPS guy and you become a 650 OPS guy, you failed. Right?
Yep.
I need the same hitter to be the same hitter in that moment. Right? You hear it, and this is an old world kind of thought. Oh, you just get a knock, keep it alive. Let somebody else, No. If I'm building my team, though, based off of gross analytics, and the gross analytics tell me that you're a power hitter who has an 850, you're Pete Alonso. If Pete just gets a single for me, all of the other analytics don't matter for me. I'm a ground into an inning double play. If he had hit a double, right? I don't. And then I keep it alive. But because you were a worse version of yourself in that moment, you set us up for failure. That's part of that clutch gene.
Yep.
I think that's the biggest thing is how many guys are themselves or better when it matters?
Right.
When are you doing your numbers? Right. And again, this goes back to, guys used to say all the time, Stanton will hit a solo home run down 8 runs in the 8th inning.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sure. He has 85. His OPS is crazy. He's got all this stuff. You get done with it. He was doing it when it didn't matter.
Yep.
The doing it when it matters thing matters.
Yep.
Again, Ohtani this year. What was the Angels' overall record? Right? And if we have the Angels, right, as the comp in recent order, what have they been winning over the last couple of years in terms of, what's their record year in and year out?
The Angels finished the year 77 and 85.
So 77 and 85. What was their record the year before?
Well, it's going to be weird because of COVID.
So when's the last time they won 77 games? The answer is 2018.
Okay.
So Ohtani being the only guy, you won 77 games, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's only been 2 other seasons since 2015 that's better than that.
For
right?
them?
So in the last 6 years, 80 wins is their peak. Ohtani was by himself for most of the year. He got 77 wins. That's what I mean by clutch.
Yeah.
Like, that dude clutched his way. Like, he matters to winning. Because oh my God, Dennis has something. Hold on, I can't even talk anymore.
Batting average leaders with runners in scoring position this season. Fernando Tatis was number 2 with a .364 batting average. Can you take a guess as to who was number 1?
Shohei Ohtani. I had to guess.
Go ahead. What are you going to say, Juan Soto?
Juan Soto, and he was 32 points higher than Tatis. He was a .396 batter with runners in scoring position.
Guys,
Oh
Juan
my God.
Soto is our MVP.
Yep.
Right? 2022 MVP if he doesn't win it this year. Like, Soto, we talked about it before the year. Soto's got the Barry Bonds vibes for me. Right? Soto is disgusting. But that's the proof.
Yep.
But that also goes back to what is Tatis's batting average this year as a normal number. Right? Because Juan Soto's got a 330 batting average, right? Like, Soto's a good hitter. So he goes from 330 to 390.
Tatis batted 280.
And Soto was .313 on the season.
Right? So, like, Tatis is 280. But then when it matters, he was a what?
.364.
That's the guy.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you pay him the money.
Yep.
Hey, there's a guy in this moment, and calm up. He is a better player.
Can you find
when he needs to be the guy.
Can you find Javi Baez stat for that?
Yeah. Number 3 was Brandon Crawford, by the way, in case anyone was.
So again, like,
B-Craw.
now we start putting the math together. We start looking at this. Things start making more sense for us. Right?
I bet you Brendan Belt was up there on that stat too. I don't know if it's in that list, but
I'll find out in a second.
Just start reading us the top 10. Just
All right,
give us
top 10, Juan Soto. Fernando Tatis Jr. we talked about. Brendan Crawford was a .353. Freddie Freeman was .352.
So hold on, right? Like we just said, can Freddie Freeman throw you on his back and carry you? Yes.
yep, it is confirmed.
Max Muncy was number 5 at a .346. Manny Machado .344. Jesse Winker.
Think about that though. Manny and Tatis were both in the lineup, and they bat top 5 in the league with a runner in scoring position.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That shows me how bad the rest of that lineup played.
Yep.
Because those 2 guys were doing it.
All you have to do is be on base.
My question is OPS in those moments. That's a stat they don't pull together. Because, again, if a guy like Tatis and a guy like Machado, great batting average, are hitting singles, but they're not hitting for power, right? Now the guys I expect to be bangers don't bang, we lose.
Yep.
Right? Keep going.
I just realized this is also the NL leaders. I'll find AL afterwards. But after Winker, it was Corey Seager, Paul Goldschmidt, and Bryce Harper.
Bryce is up there again.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And, we'll get the American League guys and we'll get that idea. But, dude, that makes all the sense in the world.
Yep.
It makes all the sense in the world. And that's, to me, why if you're any team in the league, you do anything for Soto right now. I will trade you anything you want that I have. I will trade Jacob deGrom. I will trade Francisco Alvarez. I will trade Noah Syndergaard, and I will trade you every player you want in my minor league system to have Soto. Like anyone you want. You literally just put on the paper what you want, and I will take that to pay Soto whatever he wants. If Juan Soto says, I want $50 million a year for a 12-year deal.
Excellent, sir. That is a bargain. Thank you.
Here is your $600 million. Here you go. Would you like it all up front? Yes, I would. Deal.
Excellent.
Here's $600 million up front. Signing bonus. Doesn't count. Deal. You're zero on our payroll after this. Done.
Yep.
Don't give up. Soto is God.
Yep.
You got AL for us?
AL, I'm going to butcher two names, I'm sure. Gurriel Jr. was 368. He led the league. Obviously, Toronto's going to have a bunch of guys
also
on
the
this
AL
list.
batting champ.
Akil Baddoo,
Uh-huh.
359. He was number 2. Jed Lowry was number 3. Bo
Akil
Bichette.
Baddoo's going to be sneaky good next. Not even sneaky. He's going to be legit next year.
Bo Bichette 4, JD Martinez 5, Jorge Polanco was 6, Austin Hayes on Baltimore was number 6 as well. They tied at a 333 batting average. Aaron Judge number 8, Jared Walsh 9, Teoscar Hernandez 10.
So again, Aaron Judge being in the top. Hey, because if he's in the top 10, his batting average is not in the top 10.
He batted like 290 something this year.
So again, you're at least yourself or better when you show up. My only question is OPS with runners in scoring position.
Right.
Right? Because I think that matters. I really do. I think it matters.
Yeah, Judge on the year 287 with a 916 OPS.
Right. So like again, he's 30 points higher when he comes up and a guy's on base.
Mm-hmm.
That's the clutch gene. I gotta weigh that when I'm putting this stuff together.
Mm.
Then it's the math, right? How many of those guys do I really need?
Yeah. It seems like an ideal approach, and this is very vague.
Oh yeah.
Get people going early in your lineup with high OBPs. Then you get your clutch guys. Get even if you don't have them, go get them. Austin Hayes on the Orioles batted 340?
Yeah.
Okay, you could probably get him for not much. Some prospect will probably get you Austin Hayes. And like Billy Bean this thing if you got no idea what you're doing. Like you see the Mets are trying to get
but like this is a perfect. So what you just said is a perfect component of what it is. Austin Hayes is number 6. What was the batting average?
333 with runners in scoring position.
His for the year batting average is 256. But he hit 22 home runs. He's a 3-2 WAR player. He's only 26. Is this the thing that lets me know, right, that Austin Hayes is a breakout candidate 2022?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, like, and then now we look at it with a little bit of perspective, right? Austin Hayes in 2019, as a 23-year-old playing in a few games, right, had a 947 OPS. Right, last year, sporadic at bats in an odd duck year for him as a young prospect. I'm sure it was difficult. He 722 OPS this year, 769 OPS. But those numbers tell me that this dude's going to do it more than we expect. The pressure moment doesn't get him.
How many? You said he was tied with someone, right?
Yeah, Jorge Polanco.
And how many at-bats did he have?
So Hayes was 34 for 102. Polanco was 40 for 120.
Okay, cool. So not drastically different in the number of at-bats and chances.
Right.
Okay, but that's still, I mean, at the end of the day, he's producing when it matters.
On a team that didn't produce much.
Boatload. Yeah.
So in 2019.
Oh, hold on. Do you want to know who number 11 was on the list for the AL?
Number what?
11.
Let us know.
Ahmed Rosario.
Ahmed. There you go.
And again, that team overproduced for what everybody anticipated, and Ahmed was a really, really, really good player for them, right? And Ahmed is showcasing a lot of the things that made him the guy he was. He batted 282 on the season, 11 home runs. He had a 2-1 WAR. Is that a guy that you need to have all the time? No, but like Ahmed is a dude who just showed that he'll come up clutch when he has a guy on base, and his other numbers are good. He was a better player when it needed. You are not building your team around him being a superstar. But if you put him in your lineup as your six hitter, your team's going to win a hell of a lot of games. Because he's going to be a better player when it's clutch than all these other dudes. And I'm now getting these micro moments where he needs to come up big, he comes up big.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest of the time, I have a really solid player, if not great. So you pay him $12 million a year to come play second base for you, and all of a sudden you're like, yeah, we have a guy who's a really solid everyday player, but when it matters, he's going to be an even better player. I'm getting an all-star. Because if Ahmed Rosario's batting average was 300-something all the time, he'd be a 4-WAR guy. Mm-hmm. He's an all-star. He's better than Cronenworth. Like, boom. He's better than the other guy that the Padres got. What's his name? Frazier? Yeah, he's better. Same player. Only a lower batting average. But I bet you Frazier can't hit in the clutch. Mm-hmm. And Ahmed did.
You know what's crazy, too, about the way baseball is being played now? Is that the people who could, create these opportunities for guys to have runners on scoring position to score runs, the thought process of how people are hitting now is altered, how do I just want to be on base?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it seems if there are more people on base, inevitably more runs are scored. You win more games. The top of the NL is all guys who were in contention to, or not Tatis, unfortunately, but, guys who were, always impacting and could be in contention for championships and things like that. Obviously, Soto's team, not this year, but in previous.
Well,
absolutely.
So that I think that comes back is one of the things that I'd say about a lot of the guys who are in that lineup. You don't have a lot of guys who are the leadoff hitter, right? So my question is, how biased is it based off of the fact that a guy who's your leadoff hitter is going to have worse guys ahead of him in the lineup, right? So there's a lot of time where you're just not going to come up with runners in scoring position often. Right. And
you got guys like Anthony Rizzo leading off. That's insanity.
Yeah. But my thing is we've talked about this on the show before. I think batting average has become under-representative of a good player because you can't have a high batting average in a clutch moment if you're just a guy who who watches the ball go by. Right? Because at some point in time, I got to swing the bat. Mm-hmm. Right? This goes back to Conforto. Conforto, yeah, your OPS, everything else, solid. But you always bat 260, 265. Right?
Yep.
So then when it's time to hit the ball, you don't have the square up ability to consistently put bat on ball. Mm-hmm. Who I saw the other day, and I'm pretty sure it was him, and I just got to confirm before I continue on, who had to me all of the things. He is, and I'm super happy for him. And I look at it and I go, this dude has the clutch gene, and he's always had the clutch gene, and he's proving it now. And he is playing a lot of time for a team that's potentially he played a lot of time for the number one team in the entire league, right? He had 102 hits this year for the number one team in the entire league. Hit 18 home runs, had a 782 OPS, right? Over his last 3 seasons, that is his worst year as a 780 OPS. He was routinely clutch as a younger player for the New York Mets. He always seemed to come up with big hits, but never was a superstar. But when the Mets were winning, he was there. When this team is winning, he is there. And it's Wilmer Flores. Mm-hmm. Wilmer Flores is that guy.
Yep.
He is the identity that I'm talking about. Wilmer Flores has always been able to square up a ball. His problem was he was not good at taking walks. Right? He did not have patience because his bat barrel control was so good, i.e. Shohei Ohtani, that you're swinging at balls that you shouldn't be swinging at because you know you could square them up pretty solid, but there's a better pitch for you coming. Be patient, wait for the one that you can square up and your batting average climbs. Last 2 years, he's an 800-plus OPS guy who can play some second base, some outfield, some third base. And again, he's played in 139 games for San Francisco this year with a 782 OPS. And again, the dude is just he's that guy. Mm-hmm. And that's the style of player that I think has gotten undervalued over time. And his thing has always been, I can hit the ball. But my OPS doesn't look great because I hit the ball. I hit it kind of hard, not super hard.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't walk a ton, so it doesn't carry my OPS.
Yep.
But that dude can play.
Mm-hmm.
And he's always played. Always. Crying out in the outfield because he thought he was traded. Comes up clutch.
Mm-hmm.
Banging the ball. And the Mets let him go. All he's going to do is potentially win a ring this year. And it's like it's the Daniel Murphy situation all over again.
Yep.
Everybody get too cutesy because we need these players who fit this mold.
Yep.
Trash. Dumpster fire. Deeds, you got stuff.
Yeah, so I got OPS team averages with runners in scoring position on the season.
Because you're a
boy,
god.
Deeds.
You're a god at getting those stats, baby.
The first thing I want to point out, the New York Yankees were 28th in the league OPS with runners in scoring position this year.
That makes sense.
699. The Mets were 25th because I figured that was another question coming up, 705.
Shocker.
Everyone at the top is going to make a lot of sense for where they're at right now. Atlanta was number 1, 822 with runners in scoring position OPS.
Mm-hmm.
Houston, 820 was number 2.
So right now, it's going to be Boston and it's going to be Houston in the World Series. No, not Boston.
Atlanta.
Houston. It's going to be the Braves and it's going to be Houston in the World Series. Based off of that number right there.
Okay. Tell me who's next.
Toronto was number 3.
The team who wins next year.
Dodgers 4, 806. White Sox were 794. Boston Red Sox were 792. San Francisco was 792. And then the Seattle Mariners were number 8, 788 on the season.
Again, that makes sense if they were climbing even though their team was not good.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Their talent was not good. I think again, but this goes back, San Francisco versus LA, who is shit in the bed? They've been equal. Mm-hmm. Guess what? They're close there. They've been equal. It makes sense, but when I look at the talent, I would expect these teams to not be equal. But when I look at the clutch gene, I am getting a better sense of what's real. Oh, how many of the top 8 teams were in the playoffs?
Atlanta, Houston, LA, Chicago, Boston, San Francisco, Tampa. So 7 of the 10.
Bingo.
Right?
Yeah.
The clutch gene, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it is. Right? That's all it is.
That's why we're always like, yo, who's even on the Rays, but why are they always winning? Well,
Bang.
There's your answer.
Clutch gene.
Yep.
Atlanta can't possibly win. They lost Acuna. They only got this clutch gene. Whoop. Houston. Oh, man, Houston. Been here before. Know how to hit. Know how to do it. Clutch gene.
Mm-hmm. Where was Houston in that group?
Second.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not shocking.
So, again, they went against the number, I think 7 was White Sox?
5 was White Sox. 7 was San Francisco.
So, theoretically, based off of that, the Dodgers are going to win. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And based off of that, we're going to end up ultimately having Houston and the Braves as our World Series. And if that happens, we crack the code.
Now we're just going to start watching this all next year.
This is the only thing I need.
Save the link to that wherever. Send it somewhere so we have it.
You got it.
Because that's just stupid.
Yeah.
And that we talk about what's the clutch things.
Mm-hmm.
Batting average in the moment, OPS in the moment.
Yep.
Right? Those things matter. Those things matter. And then from a player perspective, who are the players who show up and do it?
Yep.
Right? And dude, build your team on that shit.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care if you bat 280. I know you're going to bat 280 in the right moment. That's game winning.
Yep.
You might bet 0 for 5 in a game we lose. Right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's a close game. It matters. We're going to win that game because you're going to be the 280 guy when it effing matters. When it doesn't matter, I don't care who you are. Same thing. You're a stud when it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Mike Trout, doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
And the Angels were 10th in OPS with runners in scoring position.
So we know they're on the cusp. We've known that for a while. It's just a matter of
enough pitching to get there.
Yeah.
Get enough pitching to make it matter.
There's not enough. They haven't had enough moments for that to play out.
Get enough pitching for it to matter. I love this.
Love this. Great combo. I'm excited. Big game tonight. We'll see. We'll know tomorrow, and our next episode will most likely be towards the end of the championship series. It's going to be good regardless of who the matchups are. I'm excited. We'll see if Houston Braves plays out.
We will see. I'd love to see it. I'd love to be historically right.
That would be
for the 18 millionth time.
I love how we unpacked this. This was great.
Amazing.
Cool.
Guys, we'll see you next time.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
Baseball lifestyle, it's my lifestyle.